Big hello and warm welcome to all of them. Warm welcome to you too, Joe. And thank you, everyone, all the designers, creators, innovators that are joining in and tuning in from around the world. I mean, be it morning, dusk, middle of the day in your part of the world, we are absolutely thrilled to have you today with us. And I mean, for those of you who tune into ProApp workshops regularly, you must be used to seeing Rashika's face here as the host. But unfortunately, Rashika couldn't make it today. So I'm Amog, and today I'll be hosting this very exclusive workshop, and it is kind of integral to the work we do. And the topic is building trust in UX, as you guys already know. And today we have with us someone who knows what meaningful UX and trust is all about. It's Joe Cahill, right? And Joe is a dynamic design leader who, I mean, even before that, I think for those of you who have seen Joe's LinkedIn or even met him or interacted with him in person, I think we all can agree that he has a pretty infectious smile. So, I mean, speaking about Joe, like I said, he's a dynamic design leader who's 20 plus years in the industry, has, I would say, revolutionized product design and team dynamics. He has also worked with some very notable Fortune 50s. I think just before this workshop, he was sharing some experiences, some interesting ones with us. And I mean, beyond those achievements, Joe has personally mentored hundreds of professionals from around the world, and he has fostered a global design community. Now, as a captivating keynote speaker and a proud New Yorker, Joe brings his unique energy and insights to audiences everywhere, and even today, right? So, Joe, without further ado, I think the stage is all yours. So, may the force be with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is it's really funny. I see some familiar names in the attendees already. Thank you guys for joining us this morning, this evening, wherever, which I think is the beauty of this experience. We all kind of talk about all the negative things that have happened in the last 3 years, and obviously there's still plenty going on. But it is the beauty of us being able to connect, from all over the world at any point of the day. And this is being recorded, so this could be shared out, and this could constantly be a way for us to continue fostering this education to each other. And I think that's such a fun part of our life experience. And, as you were saying, uh, we're going to talk about it later, but like the mentoring aspect, I met some of the people that I see here are people that I met through ADP list, and but I'm going to start sharing out my deck, which everybody loves. Everybody loves a good deck. I will say, obviously, as we're doing these things, be active in the chat, ask questions. We're going to get to the questions later. If there's anything that pops up that I'm always looking, because, I can't help myself. If I see something pop in the chat, I probably will address it because structure is so odd. Live TV, folks. So we're talking about building trust, right? Like that's the whole point of today. But even though that was an amazing intro that I just got, and it's funny, this week I spent some time at the Hotjar conference in New York, and hearing intros for other design leaders and speakers is just, it's always fun to hear, and it always is quite humbling. But from my perspective, I've been doing this job for 23 years. If you have ever interacted with me in any way, shape, or form, I constantly bring this up because I've had the pleasure to watch everything kind of grow and evolve, and watch UX become what we knew as process in like our way, to now becoming a full-on discipline where like companies have to know how to hire for it. And that's a whole other talk for a whole other day about how people hire in design. But I have been doing this for 23 years. I started off as a graphic designer, a fine artist, worked my way into the wonderful realm of engineering in like the early 2000s, before websites were as dynamic as they were now. Um, and it's kind of terrifying to see how fast things have evolved and how we have to keep up with it, but also so exciting because every step forward gives us another chance to be creative and excited about this job. I currently work at a company called Unqork. We are a no-code SaaS platform. My job is to help our clients understand how the platform works, but what the art of the possible is. Creating engaging experiences for internal tools, which I know everybody's just like, ooh, that doesn't sound sexy. It's not, but it is, because the beauty of this practice is being able to build tools for people. Letting people's day be easier when we create something that'll get them through the day. I've built right now 6 creative teams, from most of them from scratch. Like, I show up and they're like, "Oh, we have one designer, and they're going to leave, so you need to rebuild a team." So with that is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, is that education for why and how and what we need and how we're going to achieve it. And for me, the really cool part of it has been um, watching a company grow with the team. So it's always fascinating. I think my biggest gift to any organization is giving them a creative team that just kicks ass. Let's see, was doing, like I said, early 2000s. Once websites started coming up, we started asking these questions like, how does somebody, who's going to use this? How are they going to use this? What's their goals? What's the overarching thought process? Like, what are we going to do to get them to buy this shirt, or how are we going to get them to understand the information or have trust in this company? And it's really, part of it is just me enjoying it. And we talked about, in the open, it's just having a love for this. And I always joke around that if I love this job, if I ever look miserable, you better be worried, because even when I'm frustrated, I'm always smiling. And this has been something that has, like, always been part of my life. I'm mad serious sometimes, but most of the time I'm just joking around, kind of enjoying it. And currently we have a Joe 2.0 in the mix. So when he shows up, I hope he enjoys this life as much as I've got to. But fuck all that. I know talking about myself is great, but let's talk about each other. Let's talk about this community. Let's talk about uh, what we do for each other. And I think one of the things that is really, really cool is being part of this organization, the ADP list. Um, it's free, right? Like, I think that's the thing that I cannot stress enough. As you're going through this experience, as you're working through this career, it's always good to ask for help. It's always good to get somebody to get eyes on your portfolio, or if you're struggling with something or need to understand componentry or Figma or animations or anything, like, we have people to help you. And I think us doing this, I keep saying it's like that trickle down effect, where as we continue to grow in an industry, you give back. You could even be doing this for a year or two and still be a mentor, because those first 2 years, those 0 to 2 years, are still important for people who are in university or in a boot camp and are just like, what's going to happen when I get out of this? What's my next step? Like, what's it going to take? Like, how does the frustrations happen? So, you know, I would absolutely say to kind of get up on this. Like I said, again, it's free. There's master classes. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. The company evolved like we do. And then another shameless self promotion. One of the top 100 impactful mentors made it into the top 10, which is just fun. I think it's just a credit to Felix and the team on how they keep evolving the platform and giving us the opportunity to meet people from literally all over the world. Like, if it says like 32 countries. I haven't been to 32 countries. I've been to like 4, 5, which is wild. Traveling's coming up, but don't worry about it. So we're going to talk about trust. We're going to talk about selling UX today. And one of the biggest things, one of the biggest questions that always comes up is, where do you have to sell it? Like, where does this come into play in your life? And the answer is pretty simple. It's literally, absolutely everywhere. So it's going to touch every aspect of our day, right? When we go to work every day, when we work with a team, how does UX affect your coworkers? How does a team that you work with, how do you explain to them what our process is, how we do our job? If you're a contractor, if you're a freelancer, if you pick up a new client, like, they may have no idea. They may have just Googled how to build a successful product. And it may come up, understand UX. True story. I've actually had somebody do that. They said, I need a UX designer. And I heard this is the thing. All right, what is it? Selling it that way. And then in the broader spectrum of our career, how do you explain UX and build trust in our process and your understanding of it in your portfolio, in your resume, in your career, right? It's one of the most amazing parts of finding a job, getting a job, and building that path forward is that start of understanding to, I'm going to say expert, but really nobody's an expert in this because every day something new. You know, right now everybody's trying to scramble to figure out what's the UX of AI. How does AI influence design? How does AR, VR, mixed reality, all this stuff, augmented reality just drive our future? And that's where we got to learn how to constantly sell it, because if we let people go engineering first or let them go in like half cocked into it, they're going to build bad product and it's going to ruin the experience and it's going to slow down the progress of what we can do. And for me personally, explaining my job has been constantly a part of my experience with my friends and my parents. Notoriously, I put a link to my website that led to a landing page for my mother because she, for 20 years, had no idea what I did. Design t-shirts, that's what I do. I design clothing. I make business cards. Sure, I make business cards, Mom. So the website would go and be like, hi, you've met Rose. She's telling you that I do this. Here's what I actually do. Email me. And she actually never looked at the site for quite a while. So she didn't realize that it actually was directed to people that she was interacting with. So that kind of worked out and gave me a laugh when she actually eventually saw it. So before we start, right, I want to talk about the roadblocks and things that come in our way when we're trying to do this. And I always think, I don't think anything should be that hard. I don't think our job should be that hard. I don't think our life experience should be that hard. Obviously, shit gets in the way. But when it comes to this, there are definitely some big roadblocks. And I think it's a part of the overarching experience that we have of being in an enterprise or being in a job or trying to get our companies to understand the why. And one of the biggest problems that I end up having, or I've seen happen quite a bit, is management still doesn't understand. They don't understand why it needs to happen. Why do we need these people? Why do we need UX? Why do we need to spend time? Why do we need to spend money? We have a lot of companies, especially startups, that, and it's funny, I actually saw a talk on it this week where somebody was like, oh, MVP is when you just build functionality. And I'm like, no, that's an engineering first mentality. That's not an MVP. MVP should still have design, still should have some thought into it and have a roadmap that leads you into the future. Engineering first is what brings us in and then cuts our time short to get things done. And the other big thing that we find is that when the people do have teams, like the people have internal teams, you've seen it a lot during all these like layoffs and all of the mass exodus and the quiet quitting that's going on. I personally have had designers leave for better opportunities. Awesome. I love it. I want them to keep moving forward. But then I'm trying to get a backfill, get somebody to fill the spot that somebody left. We've got a company saying, no, you can't. We don't have the budget. What do you mean? We were just paying somebody yesterday. Like, why? The budget's there. You guys never told me anybody's getting laid off. So that leads to teams that are understaffed and that are stressed, and that that disrupts the quality of design, disrupts the quality of the UX. We don't have time. That's the biggest thing. And this all goes back into the budgeting aspect of it. And budgeting always goes back to not only time budgeting, but money and roadmaps and launch dates. And all these things are always because the business knows best. Like, does it? Does the business know best? I've talked to some great CEOs over time that have essentially just said to me, listen, my job is to hire the best people to run the areas of their expertise. It's not my job to be a creative person or be an engineer or be a lawyer or be, no, my job is to be a CEO. Your job is to lead design. Your job is to lead engineering. Like that's what a good company does. People who my think cringy thing that I get to hear is when a CEO or an owner of a company or a founder of a company says, um, I'm their customer. I'm the best customer. I'm the user. You're not. You're the person who owns the company that is going to build something for a user. You may slightly understand the problem, but you are not going to be the one using this every day because your job is not indicated by that. You might not be the consumer for this. So this is where UX always comes into play. And then, like I said before, I love this excuse. There's no time. Um, I recently have worked with a client who said to me, "We don't have time for this. This is going to take too long." So I went and did some research, and I said, "Look, I'm looking at your past sprints. You guys have spent 4 to 6 weeks of refactoring code, rebuilding experiences you've already built because your current users don't like them, or they have gaps, or they have you getting feedback from this feedback loop. What if we take those 4 to 6 weeks, put that shit right at the front, and we build a smart product from there? Then you're not leading to frustrated clients or frustrated users. You're solely looking at best practice from the beginning. I'm going to say best practice. It's such a broad term. It means so much to so many people. So when we get through those roadblocks, and in a perfect world, we don't have their roadblocks. In a perfect world, everybody's like, let's bring these people in. They're experts. Let's expand the team. We still have to worry about the people in our everyday experience. So when you are in your everyday work environment, if you're not working, if you are working, if you are looking for a job, you know, how do you sell it? And and this is my thing. There's a lot of things I don't understand. Like I will never, I understand parts of engineering. I'm not a back end person. I understand React, but I'm not an engineer. Like I will never say I understand everything. And it's okay for you, for our coworkers not to understand everything. That's kind of the beauty of having the experts in the room, right? Like that's the that's the cool part of it. But your job, and I say yours, mine, everyone in this industry, our job is to always to educate and advocate, to be that guiding light forward. So let's talk about who's in your everyday existence, right? We have your product people, the people you deal with every day who come up with their goals and initiatives for what the roadmap of this product is. You have your engineers, the people who are actually building our genius ideas. You know, like people who spend every day looking at Figma files, going like, oh, and then we have to go back and say like have a conversation about it, which is great because I think that iterative process right there between designers and engineers, which I have a whole other talk about, which I love talking about, this is so crucial to the success of a product. Management, we talked about them. They don't fully understand us. They just know they need us. And then marketing. So with marketing, it's always their goals are very specific, which is awesome. And what we have to do is make sure that their goals align with our goals, which align with products goals and engineers goals and our management goals, and make sure we build experiences that kind of encapsulate all of this. And there's obviously so many more people that you deal with on a constant basis in an org, depending on the size of the org. Compliance. Hey, I really, when we're doing content design or UX writing, like, hey, I really want to say this. And compliance may come back and be like, nah, you can't. This is out of the range of what we can say. This will open us up for a lawsuit. And then we're just like, oh, all right, then let's not do that. So internally, what I constantly say to people And my core methodology is engage the teams early. Like get everybody on board as soon as you can, talk to them early on in the process, get people involved in research, get people involved in the conversation on the why and the how and the reasoning behind it, because it'll just help everybody uh, get a full grasp of what the scope is. And one of the beauties that we have with the internet is coming with data. You can find data literally on almost anything. You want to find engagement rates, if you want to find best practices on forums, if you want to find e-com best practices or conversion, or I'm doing a research project right now, like I'm trying to get as many numbers and thought and diving into analytics and doing all this so I can come with a logical response. And we talked about this right before the call. Um, One of my favorite things to do is make it digestible and easy to understand. One of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten was a product director came to me and said, "Thank you for never talking down to me." And I was like, "Oh, does that shit happen to you a lot?" And they're like, "Yeah, a lot of people like get frustrated with the fact that we don't understand." And you gave me examples that were less technical and more story driven. Guess what, guys? Storyteller. No surprise, right? I use food, I use sports, I use any analogy I could possibly find that feels right to illustrate my point, because it's so much better than having to go through like a round robin of explaining everything. I think we as designers end up in orgs where we're just sitting back and hearing tons of acronyms thrown at us, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. Tell me what that means. So it's all about making this easy, and this goes right into telling a story. you know put people in a place of the why, put people in the place of the how, put people in the seat of the user as we're trying to explain why. I've worked with enterprise companies where we talked a lot about B2B. So how do we talk to these businesses? How do we talk to a mid-sized construction company that needs our services, to a small bakery in Brooklyn that's looking to expand? And because I'm so, animated, I create like straight up personas on the fly. That bakery is one of my favorite stories. So I was like, every person who lives in New York knows of a bakery where they see a little old Italian woman behind the counter. Her sons are back there. She's yelling at them because they're all doing their best. That's mom's way, right? And you're just like, you go in there, this woman, Marie wants to expand her business. She wants to let her son Anthony open up one over in Lower Manhattan. You guys are crushing in Brooklyn. Best cannolis in Brooklyn. You want to expand over there. How do we help Marie get Anthony out there and set him up for success? Tell that story. Like, be a lot with it. And this is one of the truest forms of anything, money. So when we talk about, and this is all how when we do research, understanding how our impact converts to dollars. CEOs love this stuff. Management loves this stuff. We can cut back on abandoned carts in e-com. We can close acquisition on people filling out applications for credit cards. We get people to take out loans. We get people to buy this. We get people to understand that their journey is easy and it's efficient and it's driven for success. And this will increase revenue this much. This projection will do this. And you're going to say, like, how do I come up with those stats? Work with the team. If I cut a journey out, if I cut parts of a journey on, let's say, buying a shirt at an e-com store, and it's like 2 clicks, super easy, we can get people to get going. What does that mean for our conversion journey? And then how does that all come together? And then my biggest thing, this is what I think we all should do: stand up for yourself. Like, listen, I again been doing this forever and a day. I have the confidence in what I'm saying that if you want to talk about it and you want to dispute it, let's dispute it. When I was a junior, when I was coming out the gate, Fun side story, most creative leaders or most leaders in general are ones getting pushed into that job. We weren't like planned for it. My first leadership job, we were working at a company. Our creative director went like crazy and left. He like rage quit. Never suggest do that. I've done it myself. A little weird, but somebody had to step up. And I realized early on, I was 22 years old. I was a creative director for a team of like 5 designers. I'm in meetings. People were just like calling me like kid and junior and like, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about this. And I'm like, no, I have to. Because these decisions are impacting my team, impacting our design, impacting our flow, impacting our process, impacting everything. And I let them win a couple up front. And then I was like, I can't, because this is just gonna drive me nuts, drive the team nuts, hit on our productivity. Like, nah. So stand up for yourself. Like, you are the expert in the room. If you're doing this 0 to 2 years, you still have the understanding and process and knowledge that what you're doing is in the right path. Don't let anybody tell you any otherwise. So always, always, always stand up for yourself. I cannot express that enough. So that was when you're in an internal company, right? You're working with teams all day. Let's talk about on your own. I personally say freelancing is the core to how we get better at our job. It diversifies the work we get to do. It helps us get better to speak publicly to clients, to be confident in our decisions. And it's not always the easiest thing to get, but once you get it, you got to come out hot, right? This is the understanding of clients hire UX designers. I touched on it earlier to get themselves to a certain point. They still don't understand what we do. They still don't understand the need. They don't understand the why. And our job is to make sure they feel confident, they feel okay and relaxed and engaged in the process. Showing them milestones, showing what they could do, showing what they're going to get, give them ideas on what the journey is going to look like. And then the beauty of it is, it's not about them. It's about them. It's not about us. But really, it is also about us, right? Like, because we're the ones that are leading this charge. So when we're trying to build trust with these people, right? My big, big thing is that we need to be, and I said it earlier, educators and advocates. Talk them through the process, make it super digestible, make it super engaging, make it fun for them to see what's going on. Good or bad, I think that's also a bigger thing. Come with a process, because as you talk through it, you show them, here's what we're going to do. Here's what's next. Here's what's next. Here's what's next. This week I was meeting with a client and I'm like, all right, we did some like stakeholder interviews. I'm going to go through this information, give you guys a readout, and then we're going to start applying these ideas to designs. They're like, oh, and it's almost like a cliffhanger of a TV show. Season finales of every step of the process. Like, what's going to happen next? What are they going to see next? What is this information? How is this information going to lead into a design? And how is it going to drive everything forward? And this again, if you're new to the industry, if you'll start building a portfolio of things that you have done that you can lean back on as, hey, I built this. But when you're starting out, we have the internet. I had to look at interactions for a interactive tool for a bank, for a large bank. And I said, all right, we kind of discussed what they were looking for. I've never really like built anything like this, but it slowly related back to what like dating apps were like Tinder and Bumble and Hinge, and the interactions that they wanted were perfect for this. So I kind of went into the research mode and pulled up examples and showed them like, this is how this works. This is how it goes. And then this is so much fun. Like, this is so weird, right? We get to show people, like companies or clients who've never interacted in this before, with who their users are. what their users are thinking, what their process is, doing like a round of user interviews and having people talk about how investing is scary, or as they're trying to buy a home, there's so much information they want to know versus like the idea from the just put a picture of the house and the inside and like give them like the rough specs and the price and they can go to it. No, they want to know about school districts. They want to know about, property taxes, and they want like commuting distances to local transportation or anything like this. Like we have to help them understand who their users are and like introduce them. Be like, hey, guess what? These are the people you want using your app. And this is also another great compliment I've ever gotten. Someone referred to me as like, you feel like you're part of this organization. I love it. That's the best compliment you can get from a designer, from a client based standpoint, right? Because we should not be coming at them like a salesperson. This should not be about getting them to keep adding on more work. This should not, and it is because we want to keep growing whatever they're building. But be a partner with them. Like, remember, this is a portfolio piece for you. This is your experience. This is your future, is working with these people. You also want referrals. You want people to be happy and fucking amped to work with you. Like you want that energy. So be their partner in this because your success is totally on their success. And it always comes down to just knowing what you're fucking doing. Like we cannot do anything from the start of this talk unless we know what's going on. And I think that is one of the most wild parts of this existence, right? It's understanding UX, understanding product design, understanding how we're going to do it in the most knowledgeable way that we can. So, quick story. I know there's tons of stories with me. I talked about how I went from graphic design. I became an engineer to build websites, to understand the process and build cool products back in the early 2000s. And there was a whole software called Flash. If you want to go look it up, if you haven't heard of it, it's a nightmare for current web design and UX design and interaction design. But it was like the foundation of how we ended up going forward into where we are now, right? When I started seeing, I was a creative director for a long time, leading companies, doing all this. I see this job pop up, UX designer. All right. Interesting. What do they do? Read the description. I could do that. Their salary is like more than what I'm making leading a team. I should just go after that job for a little bit and like make money, right? Like, because that's always a goal of all of us, right? So I went and I started looking at jobs. And at this point, I had like 10, 15 years experience applying for jobs, getting rejection emails, applying for jobs, getting rejection emails, applying for jobs, going for interviews. Yeah, I'm in the interview. I'm gonna fucking crush it because I can tell the story. I am excited about this. They're gonna fucking love me. And then they say, "Where's your case study?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Oh, we saw all this work on your site, but like you don't have like any case studies around it. We thought that we'd see it like when we get to meet you." And I'm like, I don't know what you're looking for. And then they were like, "Where's your wireframes?" I said, "Oh." And in my mind, looking up what the internet had on wireframes, it wasn't just the black and white drawings that we're so used to today. It was more of the preliminary designs leading into like a lo-fi or mid-fi versus hi-fi. I'd show them what I had. And they're like, no, 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 like, like the rough wireframes. And I'd like pull out my sketchbook because I always had a sketchbook. Oh, yeah, like you just don't have the experience. Like, are you kidding? I have tons of experience. I have more experience than the person who's interviewing me. And they're like, no, 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 this is different. This is different. So then I had to take a hard look at what I was doing and where I wanted to position myself and how I wanted to position myself. And I had to get learning, right? read articles, get books, like work on it. And at the time, it was Sketch, you know, or Adobe Illustrator, my safe space. Build out wireframes, understand the process, understand the flow, understand everything. Because I could not go forward. I could not move forward in this industry, in the next evolution of this industry, if I didn't know what I was doing. And then I get in, and then people are just like, oh, you've been doing this forever. Yeah, just have to learn terminology. And as much as I hate being the person who is like harps on terminology, it's just so natural, right? It's just a natural part of how we understand what we say. So understand your points and understand, what you want to say and how you're going to say it, and it just gives you the opportunity to continuously drive your narrative forward and your story. So I always joke about this. Um, I pull constant. I have tons of like portfolios from the ADP list, right? I get to see tons of portfolios. I get to see different ways of storytelling. I get to see different ways of presentation, visual design, you know, UX design, flows, the whole nine, right? But there's always one thing that comes into focus every time, and that's the process. And as our industry has evolved, right? You're going to hear a lot from different types of boot camps and education and Medium articles and other people. Process is important, but it's not important. Process is different. It is. Like what you learn early on isn't always what goes on in the real world. I'm going to tell you flat out. Even back in 1999, when I started getting out in the world, when I was still in college, I'm like, I'm going to be a freelancer. I heard I could make some money doing this. I'm going to do this. Learning what the output of my job would be in a professional setting versus what I was learning, two totally different things. And this is on the job training, 200%. And it all starts with your process. Tell that story of what they're going to see. Going back to what we talked about earlier, talked about working with clients, talked about working with internal teams. What is your process? What are your milestones? What are your landmarks in this journey? What are you going to learn? What are you going to show? How are you going to show your overarching UX IQ? By the way, I don't know if I created this term. I started using it and now I just use it all the time. Remember when you learn something and you start to become a professional and you start to become the subject matter expert, you have to be smart in it. We've seen tons of people throughout history who have faked it till they made it. And eventually they get caught because they don't know what they're doing. You have to have a good UX IQ. You have to understand your job. You have to understand what your process is and how you're going to do it and why you're going to do it and the intelligence and insight that comes with it. And one of the things that I hear constantly from people is I'm a designer, I'm a UX person, I'm not a designer. So if you're a UX person, you know research better than anybody else. When you're a UX person, you can look and do the research around what is good visual design, what is good implementation of typography and all this. Use your skills the way they need to be used, right? So, and then it ends up increasing your design capabilities. Like I've worked with one of my junior designers now. She said that's one of her goals is to become a better visual designer, which I think is great. And I think that's also part of this story, right? Understanding your capabilities and how they come together and how they drive the narrative forward and drive your skill set forward and drive what you want to do forward. Because even again, you don't have to be a visual designer, but understanding best practice. If you're working on a research project and the client comes to you and they have like a bright pink website and it's for a financial firm, you can advise and say, listen, I understand this is your brand. Just so you know, these colors build more trust. I understand you're trying to be a disruptor. Most disruptors use this set of colors. They use this type of design, the typography. Like it works to be driving these conversations with our intelligence, with our insights, with the stories we tell. And then when we go into your case study from a portfolio standpoint, and this has been constant themes. This is why I love this doing this talk, because it has like so many interwoven themes. You tell that story with the passion and excitement that you have for it. These are all your experiences, right? Like you guys do this work every day. So if you're going to tell me about a project you created, bring it, right? Like bring your the happiness, the sadness, the frustration, the triumph that comes with a case study. There's nothing better. This is where I love how our industry has changed, because we have the ability to tell the truth. Previously, if I went into a job interview and I said, "So here's a project I was working on, and here's what happened," and then everything went sideways. I have a great story about being when I was a print designer. I was designing catalogs, and the printer, the paper that we ordered for like this matte finish that we were doing spot UV on, it was really really pretty. Paper was late. So the printing was going to be delayed, and we were going to end up having to change some things on the fly and then hand carry like boxes of them to Vegas while we were flying out for a trade show. So it's like telling people like all the ups and downs, and they were just like, "Oh, this is a lot." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "But we got it done." And it was an accomplishment, and it was so much fun, and we learned that for the future, ordering this paper, we have to order way in advance. We want to do this. Spot UVs take X amount of time to process. Working with a printer and understanding the colors run a little more blue. Like that's what we do now at engineers, understanding like how their code works and what they're doing and what's reusable and what's not. What'll take a couple extra sprints. So if you're working through a story and you're like, okay, and then we met with engineering and they said we can't do any of that. Shit, right? Like, been there. And we have to pivot and figure out what we're going to do to build the best user experience and what the users want and what the users need and how it's going to get them down a journey with the tools we have. Like there's nothing better than me going into an interview and telling a case study and watching them have that look of like anxiety in their face, because that means I'm doing it right. That means I'm telling the story right. When they're looking and being like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen in the next episode? Like what's going to be part of that story? Is it going to fall apart? I definitely have projects where I'm just like, yeah, and then like ran out of money. The project kind of ended, but like we ended up with like a really beautiful product anyway. Right. So tell that story, bring your energy and bring your knowledge of what happened. And all of this always wraps around with being confident in yourself, in your work, in your choices. There's so many people I have met during this experience that have said to me, I'm afraid changing jobs wasn't the right move. Did I make a mistake? Right? I personally do not think it's a mistake. I think all of our, bigger picture, right? Universe is on our side, pushing us in a direction. We make choices. We have to stick to them. Could always pivot down the line, but know that you're on the right journey and be confident in what you're doing. Like we all have, and go on a whole talk about being proud of your work and also not being proud of your work. I have to go through that constantly. Stuff that people, oh my God, client, oh my God, this looks great. Oh my God, I fucking love it. This is amazing. This is what I had in mind. And in my head, I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess it's good. If they love it, you pass the assignment, right? You did it right. You did exactly what you should be doing right. But I think the biggest thing, and this is me, right? I'm naturally myself. I'm loud. If you visit any of my social media, it always has like loud motherfucker written all over it, because that's who I am. I work in my office that is filled with toys and Legos and memorabilia and sports shit. And I'm authentically myself. You guys always be authentically yourselves. because you're the brand, you're what you're selling, you're the crux of all of this. Like, you guys have to go out there and absolutely crush it, because this is who you are. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to succeed. And bring yourself to it. Like, I learned very late in my career. I was trying to fit in the box that everybody wanted me to fit in. And that was so wrong, because it made me uncomfortable. I'm a big dude. I don't fit in boxes. So I had to find a way to be myself. And I went on some interviews where it just didn't work out because they didn't like me being me. I went on one interview, I got a job. I was pretending to be that typical corporate person. Got the job, went and was myself when I started working, and they said they didn't like it. And they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, all right, I'll just leave. And then followed it up by saying, in my normal Joe-ish fashion, part of me doesn't want to leave and stay here out of spite. They kind of were like, well, you should probably leave. And I'm like, I will definitely leave. But that's the thing, right? Remember, and I always say that we're in a world where social media has driven us to be our own brand, has been influencer mentality and all this shit. But the core value of what we are as a professional, what we are as a person, what we are as the future for us is being ourselves. Yeah, we grow, we learn, we change, we always evolve. The idea that I'm going to be a father is absolutely terrifying to me sometimes. Like, will this kid get the best parts of me or get the worst parts of me? Who knows? But I'm going to always follow the path that I know have gotten me this far, right? I think that's the thing that we should all do. I'm a big, big quote person. I love reading. I love finding out what people are thinking. I took tons of notes when I was at this conference this week. But this one from Ralph Kaplan, I think, really encapsulates a lot of what we're talking about today. Um, and it's thinking about design is hard, but not thinking about it can be disastrous. When we're working with all these people in our experience, they're not thinking about design all the time. They're not thinking about UX all the time. They're not thinking about the end user all the time. My day constantly is having this conversation as an advocate of the user, saying, what do they want? Working with new clients, it would make the most sense if I talk to your users to understand their needs, to understand what we're doing and how we're doing, showing them the impact after. And you can also find tons of like UX driven companies and how successful they are. Airbnb's actual CEO was a former designer. Like that shows. I think all CEOs should be designers, but that's just me. That's why we have chief design officers, how to design, chief creative officers to also influence. But it's hard to get people to fully understand why if they don't know that it's needed. And they always end up finding out it's needed way too late in the game. We have another core principle of our existence here in this industry: accessibility. I have dealt with so many companies that have only realized things need to be accessible after they get sued. Why does it take that? Why shouldn't this be part of day one when you set up any new product, any new website, any new experience? Every user is in mind. Because for a bigger problem, they may just lose the user, right? Like, that's a bigger impact on this experience, is if we alienate a whole user base. And you find this now coming out, especially in like video games. Like the accessibility controller that has come out recently is game changing. It is life changing. And that whole modular system was built on UX, on the back of us asking the right questions. Who are they for? What is it for? How are they going to succeed? How are they going to enjoy? How are they going to be part of the community that they want to be a part so bad? Let everybody enjoy all of these walks of life. So, Ralph Kaplan, this is a really great quote. It makes me always feel validated that this part of my journey has always been correct. I constantly, if you've dealt with me in any way, shape, or form, I get excited to say we get to build tools that forge the future for people, even if they're like bullshit tools. Like the building trust. One of the best A/B tests that I've ever run in my career was having an executive push down that they saw on a Chase website that they write apply now securely in the button. So it must increase conversion. And I said, apply now securely is too many words. We could test it, sure, and see how it does. What if we just put a lock and the word apply? That's it. Dunzo. Oh, well, that might not read well. That might not have people understand, right? That's not what this is about. People are going to understand it because this is so simple. If people know locks are secure. You don't want your bike stolen, put a lock on it. You don't want anybody to break into your locker at school, put a lock on it, right? Like it's called a locker, right? And it crushed it. The lock crushed it. Apply Now Securely tanked because there was no engagement in it because the button was twice the size because the words wrapped on smaller screens. And that's how we end up doing it. And I think that's the impact we get to make every day in this industry. And it's all about leading with our voice and our energy and our knowledge. So I went almost, we have 6 minutes left. I see there's a question in the chat. And I'm not sure if I fully answered this. I'm sure I did. I rambled on. It's whole stream of consciousness when I do this anyway. How crucial are UX decisions in establishing trust and fostering customer retention for any e-com marketplace startup? E-com is one of the wildest industries to be in to start with. The ability to build trust in e-com should be super easy, right? Because everybody shops online. We saw during the pandemic, like all shopping went to online. But there are still times when I go to websites and I'm like, is this real? Is this a trusted site? Is this something that I look for? So how do you make a user feel comfortable on a site, an acquisition site, when it's not Amazon, when it's not a company that's a brick and mortar, when it's something that you're trying to build through an Instagram ad or you're trying to fill your traffic that way? For starters, design obviously makes the biggest impact. If it looks fake, people get suspicious. UX writing is a big thing when it comes to it. Labeling when it comes to trusted site badges and stuff like that, because this is something that goes back. This question absolutely goes back to like the start of e-com, when e-commerce sites started popping up. How do we make people feel trusted? How do we make people know that they're going to get it in a timely manner, that they're not going to get scammed? That I think I once bought a Spider-Man mask with like the eyes that move off of Instagram, and they literally sent me a head of a Spider-Man toy that the eyes moved when they were dipped in water. So I got bamboozled. But the site looked right. I'm like, all right, whatever. It's 20 bucks to see what happens. If it doesn't work the way I want it to, did not think I'd get ripped off that way, but whatever. That's a whole other thing. So look at what best practice is. Look at what will foster a valid journey for a user, right? Like when we're trying to do any site, doesn't matter if it's a startup or an established company, UX is so critical in making the journey seamless and meaningful and frictionless. All the buzzwords, right? But when we're trying to build something like e-com and get people's money and get people's credit cards and all this stuff, it's like worked with somebody. We're trying to do this, and I was like, make sure we have Gmail logins so people can, make sure they're logging in with like an access that they know, accept Apple Pay, accept, if I go to a site and it's just pay by PayPal, red flag city. you know, and then when it comes to integrations and all that stuff, it's always making sure that the customer's journey feels polished. And that always comes through with the UX, you know. So I think it's these decisions that we make when we're building something new, it has to feel natural. It has to feel, you know, thought through and obviously researched out and tested, because when we do that testing, that round of testing is so important. Show a client this, show a customer this. What do you think about this site? What do you think about this journey? Oh, this is weird. Why would it do that? Where's my cart? Where's this? And you're just like, oh, what's your expectation? And that drives our entire process. So I don't know if you guys have any more questions. Please drop them in the chat. Please let us know. I gave us like a minute left. So, but as always, you know, thank you guys for having me. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you guys is never give up, no matter how fucking dark it gets, no matter how shitty it feels, no matter how the weight of this gets on you. Just keep pushing forward, because the industry is not going away. The layoffs are not always in UX. There's a lot of people out there in the market, but always be yourself. Always go after it. Always go hard, right? Like, this is the choice you made. Run with it.
That's right. We have to, and it'll define, I mean, at the end, who we are. And
And
it's
also,
exactly, all day, every day.
all day, every day.
So great, Joe. I think a lot of takeaways from your session. Loved it, and I mean, just to name a few, I think I do second you when you said that, you know, it's all about telling them the process. It's all about
Yeah,
explaining the process, how you arrived at what you arrived at, and you know, always be objective. Tell people through objective facts, like this is working, this is not working, and I mean, it goes without saying, just always put it through as a story, right? People love
yeah,
stories, and
yeah.
yeah, and right.
And also, if you can, test it. Always push testing. There's no reason not to test something. And to answer the quick question that popped up, start your advocacy for design the second you start a project. Like, it should just be like, hey guys, so here's our process. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how we're gonna get to engineering. Like, you know, like it's never too early to let people know that we need to research, we need to understand, and we need to build. Like, we need to build intelligently.
Right, that's right. It's I mean, there's so much competition out there, isn't it? And
Mm,
I mean, your product needs to stand out. You need to stand out, and
yeah.
every day, you know.
Even for insanely established companies,
Yeah,
right? Like, they could be around forever and their tech may not be good, or their experience isn't good because they've been riding on the coattails. You hear so many companies that redesign and remarket and rebrand, and we're hearing it all the time when it comes to new logos coming out. Like, there's a reason why people are doing new logos. You know, sometimes it's like you're trying to take out something. Johnson and Johnson with that script font for their brand has been synonymous for like 60 years. And they're changing it to something a little more modern because the company's pivoting. You know, so I think it's so fascinating because, again, like from a design point of view, I'm just like, but I love that font. It's so simple. It's like, you know, it's everybody reinvents themselves. Nike's the only one who hasn't changed their swoosh, but guess what? Everything around the swoosh changes. It's just how it works.
that's how it is. That's how it is. I mean, it's that's how the world works right now, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's just, I mean, you have to adapt, you have to change, you have to listen to people. I mean, the classic example that I always baffles me is the Nokia versus Apple thing. I mean, that just
yeah,
giant, right? A huge, a giant. Nobody could dethrone it. And this,
yeah,
nobody thought that something like that would happen. And then the downfall happened, and people suddenly went from everyone talking about Nokia to probably nobody, right? And at
yeah.
a certain point, so that was a little alarming, and that just goes out to show that you need to adapt, you need to learn, you need to implement, and uh,
And
it,
there's a whole different talk about the moment mobile design became a thing. Like we, much like AI now, we scrambled. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we adjust for these smaller screens? How do we make our desktop sites? And somebody's like, oh, well, you just build an entirely different website on a subdomain called m dot whatever your URL is .com. And that's just, and what's funny was we were device agnostic before we were device agnostic,
Right.
which is wild because it was like I would build a site for mobile that was straight for a mobile platform. And then it was like responsive design. We're just going to make it smash down. And then things didn't work. And we're just like, oh, okay, then. All right. But that's the beauty of it. The beauty of this industry, man. They're going to keep us on our toes. They're going to keep us trying to figure out something.
Yeah, and I mean AI is just getting started, so I
Just getting started.
so I mean, there's always so much to learn, and there's always things you need to learn constantly to adapt. I think, and that's the driving force here at ProApp as well, right? With every
Yeah.
course out of the hundreds that we give out, with every one of these workshops that we have, I think it's all about teaching people. It's all about learning new things, right? So yeah, I think a pretty insightful session. If anybody has any more questions, they can surely drop it. And if not, I think we can call it a wrap.
Yeah.
Just before we go, I think probably not everybody knows this, because this is something that we at ProApp have recently started. So we have started a new design community. I'll drop that link
Nice.
in the chat. And what happens there? So what happens is you get to connect and create with other designers. It's a supportive space. You get all the latest updates. You can join special events. You can participate in talks. You can participate in contests. And I mean, it's just everything that a designer would want, right? So what I will do right now is I'll quickly drop that link in the chat so that everybody can get access to it. And that being said, you
I
can
cannot
also,
stress enough. Get involved in these things, guys. Get involved in the communities. Like we're we're here for each other. We learn from each other, and there's no ego when it comes to how we design. If I work on something and somebody doesn't like it, that's fine. Like tell me why. Don't just say you don't like it. Tell me why. And we're learning together. We're growing together. You know, join forces with each other. I think it's the beauty of it.
that's a fair point. And I everybody can you can also join you can also follow Joe on LinkedIn to stay updated with all his posts. You can, like I said, join ProApp's community. You can follow ProApp on YouTube, because this workshop is going to be uploaded on YouTube as well. So yeah, if nobody has any more questions, I think we can call it a wrap. Joe,
Yeah.
many congratulations. You're going to be a
Why,
father.
thank you.
A great adventure you're going to embark upon. And
Yeah, today I get to paint the nursery, which is going to be fun. That's being creative in different ways. But yeah, this is great. This is fantastic.
awesome. I uh, I have dropped the links in the chat,
Yeah,
everyone, so you guys can access it anytime you need. I think, yeah, then I think we can call it a wrap. It was great having you, Joe, here today.
yeah, this has been fun.
Great, awesome. All right. Okay, great.
Good night, good evening, good day, everyone.
Bye bye. See you. See you soon.